exactly what the Fed's going to do next week. So we'll see. It's a kind of a wait and see thing, but hopefully we have hit the bottom, but there's still a good chance that it could go a little bit lower.
Yeah, when we talk about equity investing, we always talk about the long-term nature of it, that you should be invested for long-term, and that's easier to, I think, absorb when you're in your 30s and 40s. Not so easy to absorb when you're in your late 50s, early 60s, about to retire. We get this common comment made to us in client meeting rooms is, I don't have time for it to recover, right? Because right. And there's different layers we can unpack on that in today's show. We're going to talk about why retirees feel unprotected and the ability to add protection. But first, we're going to start off with a very special interview. Joining us today is LPL's Vice President of Annuity Solutions, Lauren Mitchell. She is in San Diego, and she's joining us on the Get Ready for the Future show today. Welcome, Lauren.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be with you today. Thanks for having me.
We are glad to have you join us today. So let's talk a little bit about, I'm going to throw some numbers out here for the audience first. There's been a 40% or was a 40% increase from 2020 to 2021, according to the Secure Retirement Institute's U.S. Individual Annuity Sales Survey. So bottom line, more inflows going into annuities. So let's start with this. What do you think is driving such a big increase in clients wanting annuity products?
Absolutely. I mean, the opening commentary that you shared really on those exact factors, right? You described the events of yesterday, what we've seen, certainly in what recent history, right? Kind of create the perfect storm for the types of features and protection that annuities can deliver to concerns and uncertainty about rising interest rates and inflation and what kinds of impact that has on retirement savings that people have put together and that are planning to live off of retirement, as well as that market volatility. And again, that word uncertainty, right? Those things together, and really the fear that comes along with that, not knowing how that's going to pan out in the long term. How long is that going to last? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen next week or the month after that? You know, that feeling of not knowing what's coming forward can really be addressed by annuity solutions. So as you all said, I mean, this is really the perfect environment for folks to take a look and consider annuity solutions.
So full disclosure, Lauren and I have known each other for a long time. We've worked together ever since we formed a relationship with LPL 17 plus years ago. So Lauren, it's great to have you on the show. We at Gen Wealth, as you know, are very much education driven, strategy based, and team delivered. And so let's do a little education about annuities. What is the main value proposition that annuities offer a client?
Absolutely. I would say the two most unique benefits that annuities can offer compared to other investment options or solutions are really guaranteed lifetime income payments and tax deferral. So with rising taxes on the minds of many, the benefits of being able to defer taxes on market growth and gains on the investments, to a future time can be very appealing. But I think really what hits home is that the concept of the guaranteed income payments for life. So regardless of market performance, regardless of what's happening in the markets, regardless of what's happening with interest rates and that uncertainty that we were just talking about, annuities can have this unique ability to provide guaranteed lifetime income payments that, clearly those present attractive benefits that you really can't find in any other solution. We could talk more about that, but I think just that, knowing, we were talking before about not knowing what's ahead, having that understanding and knowing exactly what you're going to get from an income perspective in retirement, I think can be invaluable for many.
Yeah, Lauren, thanks for joining us. You talked about the unknowns, and there's a lot of complexity that goes into creating income for a 15, 20, 30-year retirement. So for someone about ready to retire, what risk are they going to face in retirement?
Absolutely. I mean, I think the key risks, right, that we talk a lot about in the world of annuities and finding, protected lifetime, protected income solutions are, again, like we were talking about, inflation risks, right? How much is this money that I have saved for retirement going to actually buy me that purchasing power in the future, right? How much are the basic things that I need that I know that I have to survive, as well as, right, wanting to have some extra money to do some fun things in retirement too, right? What am I going to be able to purchase with that money that I've set aside for that? I know what I have today, but what's that going to do for me in the future? So that inflation risk. Longevity is another big risk, right? How long am I going to live? How long am I going to need this nest egg, right? This savings that I've put aside to last for me. I don't know how long I'm going to live, how long my partner or my spouse is going to live. So we have to plan and think about, is that going to be enough? Is that going to get us through, right, the very end? Another big risk is the sequence of returns risk. This one's really interesting, and I think maybe the phrase itself probably isn't one that maybe most hear about all the time, but it's a really important concept, right? So what sequence of returns risk means is essentially the timing of when you retire, right? You can do all this planning, you can work with your financial professional and your advisor to put together this great portfolio, and if you're lucky and you happen to decide or things work out where you're going to retire at just the right time, when the markets are doing well, your portfolio is at an all-time high, and that's going to put you in a great situation to then draw your retirement income from. That's wonderful, right? Like, lucky you. But on the flip side of that, right, nobody knows what's going to be happening when you get to that point when you're ready to retire. So what if you happen to decide, well, I'm going to retire, 6 months from today, and what if at that point in time the markets have just completely, crashed, or we're going through a downturn, right? Or we've got crazy, interest rates are rising, right? Like things that we're seeing right now. You don't know what that time is going to look like, and that's that sequence of returns risk, which again, annuity solutions can help address, because it can provide you with that kind of predictability and that certainty that we were talking about that can cause certainly some concern and fear for many.
Scott, just as a tangent here for just a second, the way we use most of the time annuity solutions at Gen Wealth is we look at that floor of income, that base level of income
Right.
that you want to have meeting your basic income need. And we look at Social Security, and if somebody has a pension, and we decide if there is a gap there between what you have coming in and what it is that you need every month to pay your bills. And that's where we begin to fund annuities into a retirement income plan to provide for that guaranteed income that Lauren was talking about.
Yeah, because if you're looking for protecting your retirement income plan, that's where the protection is needed most, on money that you're going to have to see go out the door on a monthly basis to pay expenses. Lauren Mitchell is our guest today, LPL's Vice President of Annuity Solutions, talking about adding protection to your retirement income plan. And you mentioned the risk. You went over those very well that retirees face, Lauren. One of the things we talk about when we talk about someone's need for an annuity is being able to transfer that risk to the insurance company. And certainly that guarantee is dependent on the health of the insurance company. And interest rates play a big factor in that, in the quality of the benefits that they can offer. What trends are you seeing from the companies LPL works with now that rates are moving upward?
Absolutely. That's a fantastic question. I would say it's interesting, right? Because we're talking about inflation risk, we're talking about concerns and risks that come along with rising interest rates. Interestingly, not only do rising interest rates and what we're seeing, taking place right now influence, of course, the rates that insurance companies are able to offer on rate-based products, right? So if we think about fixed annuities, fixed index annuities, if we talk about there's some newer products to the market that are very popular, registered index-linked or structured annuities that have that rate component to them. So rising interest rates environments certainly affect the rates that the carriers are able to offer to consumers on those products. And, when the interest rates go up, those tend to go up as well, which is a positive. But the other really important thing to keep in mind is that rates also affect the cost and the pricing for the hedging strategies that carriers use to offer these guarantees that we're talking about, right? If we kind of focusing primarily on those guaranteed income features and benefits that we've been speaking about, higher interest rates ultimately lead most cases to favorable options and hedging costs for the insurance companies, which is a positive because then that in turn allows them to make usually positive changes to the living benefit features or the guaranteed income features that they can offer. So what that equates to then is oftentimes, and what we're seeing right now from a trends perspective, we're seeing many carriers increase the guaranteed withdrawal rate, so the guaranteed sort of income percentage or distribution rates that they can offer to a consumer over their lifetime, on an annual basis. Some carriers we're seeing increase the amount of guaranteed what they call deferral credit that can be earned in those years when the client is not needing to take income yet. So kind of building up that guarantee from which they'll draw that guaranteed income in the future. And then in some cases, those increasing interest rates and what that does for the carriers can also lead them to, again, sometimes reduce the costs or the fees for these guaranteed lifetime income riders as well. So it's interesting because, again, with all of what's happening right now in the markets, the rising interest rates in many cases can actually, again, lead to some positive changes for what the insurance companies are able to do in the benefits and the features that they're offering.
Guys, I think we all are very aware that discussing annuities is a little like discussing religion. Everybody's got an opinion, and some people have very tilted opinions one way or the other. We don't think that annuities are necessarily good or bad. We think that they fill a need in a particular situation. And if they're used wrong, then obviously that's not a good use of anything, any financial product. But I think that obviously there are questions that consumers need to be thinking about when they are considering whether or not an annuity is right for them. Lauren, what would you tell the average consumer out there that they need to be asking about when it comes to annuities?
Absolutely. Great question. And to your point, John, right? I mean, there's all kinds of noise, whether it be positive, negative, unsure, right? I would say when it comes to annuity solutions out there in the marketplace. And as you said, does that mean that they're right or wrong for everyone? I mean, they're not necessarily right for everybody, but they can be, and they're certainly not right to have a client invest all of their assets into for a variety of reasons. But for some and where it makes sense, right, an annuity solution can certainly, I think for many, fit in as a great portion of their overall portfolio to generate some of these benefits that we've been talking about. So I would say the types of questions that I would encourage folks to ask or think about when considering an annuity are things like, you all touched on it just a moment ago, right? When you're, John, as you said, kind of thinking about that income needs gap, right? Or thinking about, what am I going to receive from Social Security, or if I'm lucky to have a pension, and I already have maybe some guaranteed sources of income that I can rely upon. How much of the income that I am going to need in retirement will those sources of income cover? And then what is that difference in what I, again, believe my projected retirement income and kind of basic needs are going to be on a monthly basis, and does it make sense? What amount of income will I need to cover that gap, right? So that income conversation, I think, is huge. I think other questions that I would encourage folks to ask are, we didn't touch on this so much in the beginning, but another element of what annuities can provide is a life insurance component, right? So, and in some cases, not to get too into the weeds, but annuities don't require underwriting like traditional life insurance does. So maybe another question to think about is, am I insurable, right? Like, or if I think about my health or my health history and things like that, and if I want to make sure that I have a way to pass on assets to my heirs or to my favorite charity, or, however I'd like to kind of create my legacy, right? Am I insurable? Because an annuity might be another way to help facilitate my needs from that perspective if maybe traditional insurance, isn't an option for me. Another question I think is thinking about how will my assets be handled and managed after I pass away, kind of like I was just saying in terms of, am I insurable? But specifically thinking about, things like ensuring that my assets are going to avoid probate, right? How can I make sure that I can control and distribute my assets in the way that I want them to be distributed? Annuities are a great way that can help facilitate that as well. And I think another great question for people to keep in mind is, again, thinking about annuities in the concept or in the perspective of how we pay for insurance for all kinds of other things in our life, right? If I pay for insurance to protect me and my health needs and my medical needs and my family's health and medical needs, if I pay insurance to protect me and my car while I'm out driving around, right, doing my daily errands or going on a road trip, if I pay for insurance for me and my home from disaster, am I also comfortable paying for, or why wouldn't I want to pay for insurance to protect me and my retirement lifestyle and my income needs and to protect the retirement that I want to have in the future, with having to worry about, am I actually going to be able to sustain that?
Well, I think you've definitely shown that there's a lot of complexity in annuities and a lot of different moving parts, bells and whistles on all of these. And they're definitely not all the same. So can you discuss the need for clients to seek some wise counsel before buying an annuity and what they should be looking for?
Absolutely, yes. You're spot on. I think annuities can definitely be complex. I don't think they always have to be complex, but they certainly can be. And I think it depends. There's a lot of different kinds of annuities out there, and there's a lot of different bells and whistles, features, right, options that you can choose. And so you can really they can really be customized for you and your needs. And so I think because there are so many different options out there and there are so many different types and so many different selections to choose from, as well as so many different types of insurance companies who are offering them, right? Kind of going back to what we spoke about at the beginning, working with a financial professional who has, who's properly licensed, has great experience and knowledge of all aspects of the investment world, and really has great sound financial planning experience and thinking are key, right? I think working with a financial professional who's focused on, placing your money with strongly rated insurance companies who can fulfill their promises and the guarantees, and someone who has support from a firm that's performing due diligence on products and carriers that, are being offered to you is also really important. I think it's also really important to work with someone who, really has a holistic view and has, again, great experience working with and utilizing other products and solutions as well, right? If annuities is the only thing that person maybe is selling, you just want to think about, well, what else are they considering me, right? What else makes sense for me to be utilizing alongside this annuity solution, right? And I think, again, just working with someone that you're comfortable with who's going to make sure that they're clearly explaining costs, fees, those things aren't bad, but you just want to work with someone who's going to lay everything out clearly for you, right? And explain all the different features succinctly for you and to ensure that you understand them at the end of the day prior to purchasing an annuity solution.
Lauren Mitchell has been our guest today on the Get Ready for the Future show. She's LPL's Vice President of Annuity Solutions. And as John mentioned, John and Lauren have known each other for several years, so not on the radio, but we want to hear some John stories at
Maybe
some
later.
point in the future.
Maybe later.
I'm sure you got a few.
She had me petting. She had me petting an alligator the last time I saw her.
Oh, that's a good tease. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah.
I
We'll
like
talk
the
about
potential in that story. But that's all the time we have now. Yeah, we'll leave it at that for now and let the viewers and listeners wonder about it. But Lauren, thanks so much for joining us on the Get Ready for the Future show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure.
All right, so we're talking today on the show about adding protection for retirees, and that was what the focus of that conversation with Lauren was. As there's all kinds of directions we can go from here. There's clearly a lot to talk about from that, but I thought she did a great job of laying out all of what needs to be said about annuities. But one of the things that I think when I hear the discussion about complexity and the discussion about which annuity is right for you, if an annuity is right for you, and then how many different kinds of annuities are out there, it does highlight the value, as she was ending on there, of working with a financial professional, one that is properly licensed, she said. And I think that's a big key too, is not just having a license to sell one particular type of product, but being multi-licensed to be able to look at the world of investments and see what tool fits into your plan. We use the toolbox analogy a lot, John.
Yeah.
That there's a toolbox of investments here, and if you have all of the license, which Gen Wealth advisors do, the toolbox is pretty much the same. It's full of the same types of tools, but you don't want to give somebody a hammer when they need a screwdriver. You've got to be able to have someone that has the knowledge and experience to pull out the right tool for the job.
Yeah, and let me be the first to say that an annuity is not right for everyone. But if you have a need for guaranteed income, there is nothing but an annuity that can provide that guaranteed income unless it's Social Security or a pension. There is no other investment product. There are investment products that have paid dividends for 50, 60, 70 years, but those dividends are not guaranteed and they're not consistent. That is what an annuity does provide. Now, annuities can do that based on the claims paying ability of the insurance company, and that's what Lauren was alluding to in terms of the financial strength of an insurance company. And you have to ask yourself, do I need to insure what the annuity is providing? And that is the regular predictable income. And for your basic expenses, for your food, clothing, transportation, shelter, taxes, insurance, things of that nature, the answer's got to be yes, because you have to provide those things every month. Those are monthly liabilities against your assets. And so if you can ensure that those liabilities are going to be met by regular, predictable, dependable income, then you've done a good thing to put the foundation in on your retirement. But Tim, that is really not the end of the story. You can't just put everything into an annuity and say, okay, I'm all set to go, because you have something called inflation that we know a lot about these days.
Yeah, we definitely know about inflation, and we're hearing a lot about that now. And we definitely have to have assets outside of the annuity, because the annuity, there is a cost to pay in an annuity, because it is buying insurance on your retirement. It's you're paying a cost to get that guaranteed monthly income for the rest of your life. And so we've got the required income taken care of. So now the desired income needs to be in some assets that could potentially grow as the market grows, so we could get those market-like returns. And, there's even annuities that help do that are very low cost or no cost that provide protection. I think Lauren mentioned that in the RILAs that have come out recently. And so we've been utilizing those, especially for our clients that are a little more risk adverse, to be able to provide some more downside protection but get market-like returns. But we have to have investments that are going to, outpace inflation, so that we can provide raises in income over time during retirement.
Lauren alluded to this, and you did too, Scott. I think that, if you go to a carpenter, he's got a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Yeah. And if that's all he has is a hammer, then he's going to drive nails.
Right.
And if you go to an insurance agent who has only annuities to sell, you got to be careful about getting all your money wrapped up in an annuity. You don't necessarily need all of your money, as Tim alluded to, in an annuity. You need liquidity. You need the ability for those assets to grow to offset inflation. You need diversification. You need a lot of that. But in the role that an annuity plays, it is invaluable to someone in terms of providing that guaranteed income.
And you also shouldn't go it alone. That's the other thing that's happening when I think about all the complexities of annuities and the need to build it, as Lauren said, in part as part of a holistic financial plan, that's going around now, and it's likely to happen, I think, that annuities are going to be able to be offered in 401ks. That day's coming, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And you think about everybody out there on their own pulling the trigger on buying an annuity on their own in the 401k without fully understanding what they're getting because of how many different types of annuities there are.
I believe, without a question, that there is never going to be an obsolescence of financial advice. People are always going to need financial advice to have the perspective to understand what product they need at what particular point in time in their life and how it fits into their situation. That will never go out of style. Now, the question is, are you going to be intelligent enough to go, I need that advice and go seek that out? Or do you want to just kind of throw caution to the wind and just pick something out of thin air because it feels good? Oftentimes what feels good, Tim, is not necessarily the right solution.
No, and we've definitely seen that too with people that have come to us after they've made that mistake.
Yeah.
Right.
And there are some, there's some garbage out there in annuities. I mean, there's some things that we would never utilize. Very high fees, very low cap rates, just all kinds of different things. Those bells and whistles, they sound good because they were sold to you by someone who's going to get paid by that sale. But there are some things out there that we're trying to get people out of, and sometimes it's very difficult. There's sometimes 12, 16, 20-year surrender periods on those, and you're wrapped up in them. But we'll do our best to get you the ship righted and get the things going in the right direction.
There's always that shiny object out there, and you have to think about, well, if they design this thing to be the shiny object and to attract you to the whistles and bells out there, is it really what you need? Or did they design it with all this stuff in it to get you to buy into it because behind the scenes it's a stinker? And that's what we do at Gen Wealth, and that's part of what Lauren's job is to do due diligence on annuity products. And there are very few annuity products that we use here at Gen Wealth, but those that we use prolifically to help provide that guaranteed income that people need.
That's where I was going next to talk about LPL's role in all of this. There's a significant vetting process that goes on, the screening process, we'll call it, before an annuity provider or an annuity product even makes it onto the platform at LPL.
Right.
And that means that you're getting that if you come and plan at Gen Wealth, that you'll know that some of those stinkers or those garbage products, as Tim alluded to, have been kept out of the equation before they ever hit an advisor's eyes. So, go ahead.
And I was just going to say that there's a further, here at Gen Wealth, there's a further vetting that we do for how we use annuities here at Gen Wealth. We obviously have access to, but we don't have approved here at Gen Wealth for use a very limited number of annuities that are on LPL's platform. Not to say that any of them on the platform are bad, they just don't fit our intention for our clients.
Yeah. So we've alluded to the floor and the bucketing strategy a little bit here, but as we have about 5 minutes left in today's show before we need to wrap it up, let's kind of hone in more specifically on the ready-to-retire process, because that's really where we're leading with this when you talk about annuities and when you talk about, do I need to add protection to my retirement plan? And we believe very strongly that the time frame that you need to be entering the ready-to-retire process at Gen Wealth is 10 years or less from the time you're planning to retire. And that's not to say we don't have clients that are younger than that, but you're still in a growth strategy, really, until you reach the 10-year time horizon from retirement. And that's when we believe that the investment strategy probably needs some tweaking, probably needs some changing to prepare for the shift from accumulation to distribution. So what does that look like? If you're 10 years out from retirement and you're listening or watching us today and you want to know a little bit more about the ready-to-retire process, then you need to tune in for these next few minutes, and then give us a call, because we can't get it all in the next few minutes, but we're going to talk about it. We talked about the flooring. That's the first part of the checklist, if you will. We have to determine that your required income need is met. So when clients come in, we're going to ask them, what is your required income need? And it is amazing to us still to this day how many people really have no idea what it is currently or what it's going to be in retirement. So we have to identify that. And it may be not the easiest thing to do off the top of your head. So there's a little bit of process in that, figuring out, what am I going to need to pay the bills? What am I going to need for a basic level of lifestyle that I want in retirement? That's your required income need. And then we start to look at the other side of the equation, John, to see if your required income need is going to be met with your guaranteed income sources available to you.
Yeah, and then we're just going to do the math on that and figure out what we need to provide you in terms of guaranteed income, additionally to Social Security and any pension that you might have. Once we get that foundation, if you will, laid, if you think about a house analogy, that's the foundation. The foundation isn't anything really pretty or sexy or anything. It's not nobody invites somebody over to see their foundation,
Unless it's cracked.
Unless it's cracked.
Unless it's a mess.
Then you need help.
Yeah.
But nobody shows off their foundation, but it is very functional and useful in terms of how you live your life. So we do that, get that taken care of. Then we go to work on the living part of the house, if you will. And that, Tim, is where we begin to invest money into fixed income products, real estate products, and equity products to provide that additional income that people are looking for, but also to provide growth to offset inflation.
Yeah, that's where we have the different buckets. You probably heard on the radio here before, but usually 5-year segments, 5-year buckets. We want to make sure that the sequence of return risk that Lauren alluded to, that's how we're going to combat that and have some very safe, more conservative investments on the front end of that. Maybe some real estate, something more kind of balanced in the middle, and then really growth on the end. Because if we're looking at someone retiring at 60 or 65 and we'll plan out to age 90, we've got a 25-year retirement, we're going to want to make sure that we can keep up with inflation. And the only way to do that is to have money in the stock market, in those growth assets. And so we're going to be able to bucket that out. And the great thing about what we're doing is we're going to put that plan together, and then we're going to go get the investments. So we're not going to choose the investments before we actually have the plan built.
And Scott, we've talked about the production of income as just to illustrate the ready to retire process. But let me just say that it's way more involved than that. There's a lot of other things going on in your life other than just the provision of income.
Yeah.
We're going to look at things like your Social Security claiming strategy. We're going to look at things like your need or lack of need, that whatever it may be, for providing for long-term care insurance. We're going to look at things that maybe you haven't thought of about maybe how your assets are going to pass to your heirs. There's a lot of misconceptions about things like that. All of that is involved in the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process. If you're trying to get ready to retire, you need to have a very logical, mathematical-driven, and really education-driven strategy for doing that. And that's what we do here at Gen Wealth in the Gen Wealth Ready to Retire process.
An annuity is a product, but your retirement is not a product. It is a plan that may include an annuity product, but you have to come to the plan and find out if it's right for you. So you hear the bell there. So it's time for our final thoughts, and Tim, we'll start with you.
I really think that out of this, we know that retirement isn't a one size fits all. Everyone's going to be unique, and I think that's why everyone needs to come in and sit down with us and have a plan put together of what your retirement needs to look like and for you and what your goals are. And then once we have those goals in place and once we have that plan in place, then we can go select the products. An annuity isn't right for everyone. And so, if it is intended for your plan, then that's what we'll recommend. But it's really coming in and making sure that, we're all unique. We have the plan that's built for us and what we want to make sure our retirement looks like.
Scott, I will say that, obviously the markets have been very volatile. Yesterday, on Tuesday of this week, the markets kind of rattled us a little bit with the 1,100 point drop in the Dow or something of that nature. I don't believe you should react to day-to-day swings in the market, but here's the point. Time is passing. And if you're sitting there going, I'm waiting to the right time to do this, there is no right time better than right now. Because wherever you are right now, we can pick up and help you to create a very clear vision, a very clear strategy of how you're going to get from where you are now to retirement.
We want to see you for the Ready to Retire process, but if you're not ready to take that step, at least take the first step. My final thought is start the road to retirement. The road to the retirement you dream of by taking the first step for free. Visit 15minuteretirement.com. That's the number 1, the number 5, and then minuteretirement.com. Or even easier, text the word checkup to 501-381-5228 to get your free assessment. And that's all the time we have for this week's Get Ready for the Future show, talking about retirees and how they can add protection to their retirement income plan. We hope you'll join us again next week for another edition of the Get Ready for the Future show.
The Gen Wealth Financial Team is available to you 24/7 at info@getreadyforthefuture.com. Or call our offices at 866-653-PLAN. That's 866-653-7526. You should personally consult a financial advisor before making any investment, and no strategy can assure success. Gen Wealth Financial Advisors is an Arkansas registered investment advisor with securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC.